Hello and welcome to this Prepare for IELTS Part 2 speaking video, and in this video I will describe a piece of good news that you heard from the TV or the internet. You should say what the news was about, when you heard this news, where you heard this news, and explain why you think it was a piece of good news. To be perfectly honest, I was struggling to think of a piece of good news, because sadly, at the moment, the world is a dark place, and we are bombarded with stories about murders and such like on a daily basis. However, then I suddenly remembered the heartwarming story of the Thai footballers who were trapped in a cave and all came out alive. I can't recall precisely when it was, but it wasn't that long ago. The boys had been exploring the cave on a school trip. From memory, I think they were all teens, but they might have been a bit younger. Anyway, they had gone into the cave with their group leader, and whilst they were in there, the water at the entrance of the cave started rising, and they were trapped. They were stuck in there for a few days, and the whole world was watching them and praying for them to get out. As for where I first heard about it, it would have been on Twitter. I would have seen it trending on Twitter and clicked on a news story to find out more. Again, I am not entirely sure of the exact details, but I believe it was 2 British divers and a few others who made the precarious journey of going into the cave and trying to rescue them. The rescue operation lasted a few days, and not only were the boys' lives at risk, but also the lives of their rescuers. Fortunately and amazingly, there was a happy ending, and all the trapped boys came out alive. I cried tears of happiness when they emerged out of the cave. It was a remarkable story, and those who saved their lives are real heroes. So let's take a look at some of the language. In most of the videos now I'm using, to be perfectly honest, so you become familiar with it and it becomes natural for you to use. This is also a good first sentence I was struggling to think of, meaning I was finding it difficult because you've got the past continuous there, which IELTS examiners like. Sadly, unfortunately, the world is a dark place. This is how we describe the world at the moment, because things are very bad, things are horrible, a lot of people are depressed, so the world is a dark place. We are bombarded with. When you're bombarded with something, you hear it repeatedly, you see it repeatedly. Murders and such like. This is like saying, and other things like this, but we write it as one word, murders and such like. The heartwarming story of, so this topic is about a piece of good news you heard, so even if you're not talking about these boys, you're probably going to talk about a heartwarming story. It's a story that warms your heart, a story that is a good story, a nice story. And they were trapped in a cave, so with this topic and these boys, it gives you the opportunity to use the passive. They were trapped in a cave. A lot of IELTS questions ask you where, when something happened, and instead of saying in 1992, I can't recall precisely when it was, because this is much more complex. The boys had been exploring, some very good past perfect continuous there. And another very useful phrase for lots of topics, from memory. So you're not saying this is a fact, you're just remembering it, and this is how you remember it. From memory, I think they were all teens. So I don't know their exact age, but from memory, they were all teens. So a very useful phrase to introduce a sentence. They had gone into the cave past perfect, and whilst they were in there, The water started rising. When we use the verb to start, we follow it with an ing verb to start doing something. They were trapped, they were stuck. These are both useful words for telling this story. The world was watching them and praying. Because this story happened over a few days, we can use the past continuous because we were watching for a long period of time. So when you want to refer to another bullet point on the card, you can use as for. So as for where I first heard about it, it would have been. I'm not saying it was because I'm not entirely sure. I can't remember, but I'm thinking, yes, it would have been because I use Twitter a lot for accessing news. I would have seen it trending on Twitter. The Twitter trends are the things that people are talking about most, the hashtags people are using on Twitter. So I would have seen it trending on Twitter because it was trending on Twitter. Again, I'm not entirely sure of the exact details. So just a useful complex phrase to start your sentence because you're saying, I don't know exactly, but I believe it was. And this is more complex than saying, it was 2 British divers. I'm not entirely sure of the exact details. And divers, these are the divers, people who dive underwater. The precarious journey. Precarious is an adjective and it means dangerous. It was a very dangerous journey. It was very precarious. The rescue operation, just the act of rescuing these boys. And the boys' lives were at risk, but also their rescuers, the divers' lives were at risk too. If there's a danger of something, we say it's at risk. Fortunately and amazingly, so try to use lots of adverbs in your answer, there was a happy ending, so a nice ending, and all the trapped boys came out alive. We don't just cry tears of sadness, we can cry tears of happiness, tears of joy. When they emerged out, to emerge out of means to come out of. A remarkable story. If you're not talking about this topic, the story you might be telling might also be a remarkable story. So quite a surprising, quite astonishing, a lovely story. Those who save their lives. So those people, we can drop the people and say those who save their lives are real heroes. So a hero is somebody who has done a heroic thing, a remarkable thing, a wonderful thing that we can all admire. So you can choose to talk about a different story, but if you're familiar with this story, then why not talk about this one and try to remember some of the vocabulary that I've used, such as a precarious journey, rescuers, boys' lives at risk, emerge out of the cave, cry tears of happiness. There is a lot of complex language in the model answer here. Right, I'm going to go through a couple of part 3 answers now. There are more in the PDF. I think there are about 5 question answers in the PDF, so have a look at those, but I'm only going to go through another 2 on the video. So this topic has been about watching and hearing the news. So do you think children should start watching news from a young age? I was going to say 100% yes. And then I hesitated because the news is full of heartbreaking stories with graphic images. I strongly believe that the young should not be exposed to such things, so I have changed my mind and think absolutely not. So actually through the answer, I initially thought one thing and then I changed it when I got to the end. So 100% yes, I was going to say 100% yes. So some good grammar there. And then I hesitated. When you hesitate, you pause, you think, oh, I'm not sure about this. That's to hesitate. So I hesitated and actually thought more deeply about the news, and it's full of heartbreaking stories, very sad stories. Graphic images are images that maybe contain blood or dead bodies and quite offensive or quite shocking images. graphic images. So I believe that the young should not be exposed to such things. They should not see such things, to be exposed to see. So I've changed my mind and I think absolutely not. So we've got 100% yes and absolutely not. Now you can, as you're talking about an answer, change your mind, and remember, you're not marked on content. They like you to develop your answer, but you are marked on language. So it's about getting the complex language in there. And another question they may ask, because it's very topical, why do some people like to share news on social media? There is a tendency nowadays to share everything. So if something is newsworthy, they will share it. Some like to share their personal news, such as the birth of a child, because it is convenient and faster than trying to contact all of their contacts. I feel that there is a tendency to overshare nowadays, and things that you posted as a teen may come back to haunt you. So I think sharing should be done with caution. So I'm basically saying people like to share everything if it's newsworthy. So it's basically a piece of news that people are interested in, they will share it. Some, notice I haven't used the people again, some like to share personal news because it's convenient, so it's easier, it's faster than trying to contact all of their contacts. So you've got contact as a verb and contacts as a noun. Your contacts are the people in your phone who you are in touch with, so your friends and family, your contacts. And there is a tendency, if there's a tendency, it means that a lot of people are doing this, to overshare. This means we share too much, and things may come back to haunt you. When people die, some people believe in ghosts, and the ghosts come and haunt us. If a thing comes back to haunt you, it's like you've done something, so you've put a picture of yourself online of you doing something not good, like drinking too much or being drunk, and then you apply for a job and they've seen your photo online of you drunk. The photo comes back to haunt you, and this means you are being punished by this photo that you posted many years ago. So sharing should be done with caution. To do something with caution means do it carefully and think very carefully about it before you do it. So a lot of complex language in here. You don't have to try and learn everything, but certainly try and remember some of these answers, and try to answer these questions without looking at my answers, or go through them a few times using my answers and then see if you can remember them, and that will help you to learn some new vocabulary. But make sure you look at the PDF, because there are a few more questions and answers in there too. Thank you for watching.